never thought that this could happen. What the hell is going on? 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 I traveled far to be with you, then you leave me, girl. That's not cool. I never thought that this could happen. What the hell is going on? 'Cause I love you, I need you, said I see you moving on the dance floor. I never thought that this could happen. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on, baby? What the hell is going on? Tell me what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? 'Cause there was a time you were here with me, girl. All things were fine, lost and happily, baby. Then you decide that you're not gonna be mine. Well, I lost my mind. This life is not for me. 'Cause I love you, I need you, said I see you moving on the dance floor. I never thought that this could happen. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Yeah. What the hell is going on? Tell me what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on, baby? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another wonderful episode of Call in America. My name is Kelvin West. I'm your host. And today we are talking about Make America Great Again. Ladies and gentlemen, super excited to be here with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host. My co-host today is the one, the only, Mr. Kevin Fry. Kevin Fry, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing great. I raced back from California to be here, so I'm feeling good.
Hey man, so let's talk a little bit about your name real quick. You are the Fragger King. Where did you get this from, Kevin?
Well, it was a Netflix series, The Tiger King. I can maybe switch it. Here, I'm going to switch it right now.
No, I love it.
Be bold. Here's my name.
I love it. I love it. I love the Fragger King. That's super awesome. Kevin, you are my co-host today, and I want to go into why you are the co-host today and what this show is all about. We're going to go over some rules for today, and then we're going to bring in our other guests, and then we're going to get started. We're going to jump right into this. First and foremost, Kevin, you are a dear friend of mine. How long have we known each other?
I was probably 20, so it's at 15 years.
Yeah, for sure. And so, you and I have had a wonderful life together, just in and out of each other's lives. You've been there for me in many, many ways. I would imagine vice versa. We've done shows together. Yeah. We've hated each other, and when I was doing choreography for you and you didn't let me do my work, but we've always stayed close and near and dear to each other. And the Trump presidency was an interesting time for us. Do you want to go into a little bit about why was it that interesting for us?
Well, I've always been kind of openly libertarian, as we were discussing before the show started. But the political discussion was so transformed in the last 4 years that it got, people started canceling each other.
Yep.
And you had to be really careful about what you said or what you openly supported or didn't support. And I knew that you were kind of,
I was a hardcore fan.
You had.
hardcore, damn hardcore liberal. That was my bag. You know what I mean? That was my absolute bag. 2020 changed a lot, not only in America, but it changed a lot for me in my life. One of the major things that I did was walked away from the Democratic Party. You had a huge hand in that, and the reason why is because, and again, I don't want to get too lost down this rabbit hole, but we came together, and I just said, I'm not going to lose Kevin. I'm not going to lose Kevin. I have in-laws that are hardcore Republicans, and so this idea of canceling people that mattered to you was a real deal. It was a very big deal, and I just chose not to do that with you. And what we did together was we continued to have conversation and open dialogue about what was happening in America, what was happening with Trump, and what was happening between Republicans, Democrats, black versus white, all the topics that were hot topics in 2020, we connected on. And what we challenged each other to do was to hear each other out, to stay focused, to stay on topic, and to look at each other's resources, right? If you sent me an article, I read it, and vice versa. And so I really learned a lot from you. And so I just want to thank you for co-hosting this with me today.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me on here. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump right into it, guys. We've got two amazing people that we're going to be bringing on to the stream right now. First and foremost, I'm going to bring on Rainbow. What's up, Rainbow?
Hi.
How you doing, love?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm super excited. So super happy to have you on. This is going to be a high impact panel. What I'd like to do right now is just kind of introduce yourself and what party affiliation do you belong to? And we'll just start with that, and then we'll bring in the next guest. Go ahead.
My name's Rainbow, Rainbow Spanigal. I wouldn't say that I don't affiliate myself with any particular political party. If I was going to call myself something, I would call myself left libertarian, with strong leanings toward being an anarchist. So that's kind of I feel I have felt compelled in recent years to vote Democrat, but that is not the party that I affiliate myself with.
Very good. Well, welcome. Glad to have you. Next up, we got a rock star coming. We got a rock star coming to the stage. We've got Mr. Dallas. Dallas, how you doing, baby?
Not too bad. Definitely not a rock star. I can't sing that well.
Tell us your party affiliation and introduce yourself.
I never really had one growing up. I never liked being in a box or identifying with something that doesn't encompass all of what you are. I guess I thought I was Democrat because that's just what people around me said they were. Until I really looked into things, I didn't align with those. So I don't really think I have. I guess I would be on the left, definitely about like social economic systems and safety nets for that kind of stuff. But then also I'm really into personal freedoms and not having the government interfere in your day-to-day life. But then I also like having the government there to protect us from corporations and such like that. So I don't really actually know exactly what I am. I haven't taken one of those fun online tests yet, just because I don't like pairing myself to titles like that, because then I feel like I have to view it through that lens instead of just approaching each individual subject that we face nowadays and deciding what's the best route, not what's the best from that view of my political affiliation.
Welcome to the show, Dallas. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to jump right into. We got another rock star who's joining the stream, and I just want to go ahead and preface this with saying that everybody on the panel tonight is somebody that I've shared time or space with, and I'm really excited to connect. Who we're going to add to the stream here. Jeremy, introduce yourself and tell us what party affiliation you're with, if any. Floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Christensen. I guess I belong to the party of my beliefs. I grew up in a very conservative household. My parents are very hardcore Trump supporters, as are most of my family. I would probably have to say I have more majority of libertarian viewpoints, limited control over lives. I believe that the local governments and authorities should have the majority of the say. Try resetting my internet. Okay, yeah. I will try and get back in here. Thank you, Kel. Right.
Very good, very good. Okay, my friend, no worries. Okay, guys, so let's jump right into it. And I want to talk a little bit about I want to talk about, I want to talk about the history of this phrase, "Make America Great Again." I looked it up on Wikipedia. This phrase was not used. This is not the first time this phrase was used. It was used first during the Reagan era. It was used again by Bill Clinton during his time in office, and then again for Trump. So what I'd like to know is, A, did you guys know that? And B, and what are your thoughts about this being reused? The floor is open. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't know that it had been used before, but about it being used, I mean, it makes sense. A lot of stuff nowadays, we like to think that history is repeating itself, but I think history has just been that, exactly history. I don't think we're repeating it. I think a lot of these issues we face never went away. We just kind of stopped paying as much attention to them, or thought they did. So same thing with like "Make America Great." I think it called to more of an ode to like a fictional America, that like it's a perception of something that didn't actually exist. And so when they call to a "Make America Great Again," it's more of a referencing to, well, make it great for who? Because the farther back you go, the less great it is for all of us, but it can be great for certain subsects of American people. I think a lot of politicians definitely like to reuse other people's bits or talking points, the same way as how the right's fearful of the left for coming for their guns for the past 50 years, and we've never come for them because we're not going to. If you go far enough left, we also want guns. So yeah, that's what I have to say about it.
All right, Rainbow, you got some thoughts on this? Go ahead.
I do. I'm glad you brought it up about history not repeating itself. I was listening to something earlier, and there's an apocryphal Mark Twain quote. It might not actually be his quote. It's history may not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And that, I think, is exactly, those people, those men used that phrase for that reason. They wanted to bring up this, not real part of American history that never really existed, but that people, and particularly the people they wanted the votes of, felt more empowered than maybe they do today.
Wow. Very good. Kevin, what are your thoughts, my friend?
Well, whether or not we did really have this great shining history, there's certainly a feeling and a perception that America used to have more prestige. It was a place that people around the world looked to as a model. We had a lot of confidence in our consensual government and market economic system. And we projected a lot of power around the world. Everyone wanted, other countries tried to emulate us. And then there's a feeling that that confidence has been lost, that we see ourselves as we've lost any moral authority we had in the areas of the world where there's a lot of conflict. So we don't feel confident we can go in and interject ourselves, certainly after the Iraq War. That we kind of wish we were culturally more like Europe. And we are reconciled to the idea that the future will probably be controlled by socialist countries like China, and that's okay, and we have to kind of manage that transition of power. And I think a lot of people feel that we don't have to accept that fate, and that there's a lot that's great about this country, that we used to be able to do things and build things that we can't anymore. We were just in San Clemente and went to this house, and I read, it was like a museum. Read the story of this guy Ole Hansen, who was a Norwegian immigrant, or his family was. Grew up in a log cabin at 13 years old. His school teacher got married and moved away, so he became the teacher at 13. Got a law degree at 18. Got in a train accident. They said he'd never walk again, but he got a covered wagon and made himself walk behind it. Went out to Seattle. Anyway, long story short, this guy created the town of San Clemente just out of a vision and a dream, as he wanted a Spanish village on the sea. Anywhere you go in the world, or I'm sorry, in America, you can find these little museums and read these little stories about these heroes that you've never heard of, these just unbelievable people. And it's just hard to look at that and not feel like we've lost something. Like we're kind of an inferior people than we once were. I understand there's like a racial and there's a gender. There are issues there. It wasn't a great place for everybody, but the sort of that can-do feeling, I think, has been lost.
Very good, very good. And we're gonna get right into that because I do want to talk about the race topic. I do want to speak from from my perspective on that. Jeremy, welcome back to the stream, my friend. What are your thoughts on? I don't know if you heard it, but "Make America Great Again." This slogan has been used before. It was used first for the Reagan era. Bill Clinton used it again during his time in office, and then we have Trump doing it. What are your thoughts about the overall slogan as it is? Go ahead.
I think it's got some decent sentiments behind it, but the problem is there's just so much division in our country that we can't agree on what making America great would look like. We have a divisive system of government. It's built to push us apart, to have it one group versus another, and nobody seems to want to work for a common good because everybody's idea of what the common good is so vastly different.
Right.
So I think, like I said, I think it's a good idea, a good sentiment, but we can't really put it into action until we can kind of come to some sort of common ground as to what we want a great America to be.
So here's the thing: is that from what I'm hearing, is it sounds like we all kind of on the same page in regards to the statement of make America great again. When was it great? What does that actually mean, right? And we're so divided, and there's so many different perceptions of this that we really can't get a definition of what that is, what that could be, or what it should be. I have a question though, and this is kind of one of the questions that I had for everybody. When was, and it's going to be, we're gonna get right into it here. When was America ever not great for white men? That's what I want to ask. And anybody can take this. When was America ever not great for white, straight men, if you will? Floor is open.
When you were a white Irish, because you weren't actually white yet, you were a paddock. So basically, I feel like a lot of people who are now under the umbrella of white and who have made it as white took their turn as that class of people who were mistreated. Like, not nearly to the level of other people, but if you look at like New York back in the day, they had the same type of talk how we do nowadays about Mexican immigrants. They had about Irish. They said it about Italians. But they all took like their turn being like that kind of cop out for the issues. But then once they got past that and through their own rebel gangsters across America, through like the Italian mafia, through, the IRA, through like all of these people that like established themselves within the system, they then got brought underneath that umbrella. Like, okay, well, Irish people are white too now. Well, Italians, like, you're kind of white too. So that I guess like you can be under this umbrella. But they just like took their turn being that disenfranchised people before then they were considered to be white.
Powerful stuff. Rainbow, what are your thoughts?
2020 didn't seem like a real great year for the white man. And I don't know, 2008 maybe. I'm not a white man, and I can't speak to. I guess we come to the point that I say that I don't know, because I haven't done any research on that, because I don't care that much. Sorry. But
that's okay.
But yet, 2020 seems like it was a pretty bad year to be a white dude, straight white dude.
Hey man, 2020 was a rough year for everybody, but white people, y'all definitely were on. You guys were on. I will agree with that. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Oh, when you could be the richest person in the country and have polio and die and be in a wheelchair, or when you're part of the Oklahoma diaspora because you got driven out of town by the Dust Bowl, and my God, the world has been hard on everybody for a very long time. There are plenty of people throughout American history and throughout world history who were not privileged in any way, and I wouldn't trade my life as a white male in 2020 for the life of the richest robber baron of the Gilded Age of any color. History's hard. It's a hard place.
Interesting thoughts. Okay, let's go right into let's see who hasn't spoke yet. Jeremy, what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Coincidentally, I have been a straight white male my entire life. So I guess feel like I should have some point of some authority to be able to speak on this, but I agree with what Kelvin and Rainbow both said. 2020 was definitely a year where white men were looked at very differently, justifiably or not, vilified quite a bit publicly. I always hesitate and don't like starting to compare the suffering of one group to the suffering of another group and trying to weigh out who had it worse and who has it worse, and kind of come up with a list of in order of what group has gone through the most and is still going through things. I feel like recognize that there are differences, that there is a problem. We don't need to quantify the amount of suffering that any group has gone through. What we need to do is figure out what are we going to do about it.
Interesting thoughts. Okay, well, guys, I'd like to take this time to open up the floor. Open up the floor. What is something that stands out to you guys? What is a question that you guys have for the group? To really further this dialogue about make America great again. What did he mean by that? Who was he talking to? What are your guys' thoughts?
I'll take lead if that's all right.
Yeah.
I want to touch on, I think Calvin mentioned it when he was talking, and also Jeremiah, about what it means to make America like great again, or what that time period was like, or what exactly that meant. And for me, like if I was going to be the one and make America great was my slogan, I would look to the time when America was booming the most, when our economy was the strongest, when we had strong social systems, our middle class was huge, it had inordinate buying power. We expanded our country's infrastructure, and all of that happened under a 3-time elected socialist president who, after World War II, built suburbia, protected our parks. Roosevelt, we literally only have 2-term presidents because of him, because he did so good a job building the middle class. Like, it was mostly for white suburbia at the times, and we redlining all of that. We cut out people from our country from that economic boom, but that's what gave it to us. So when America was great and we had that buying power and we were like this moral authority, like you guys talked about it, those were under social systems. That was when we had an inordinately high tax on the top 1%. That's what then made them to get their tax exemptions through doing orphanages, insane asylums, building hospitals, and then around Reagan, we switched, and we've had that 50-year study now where it's come out that trickle-down economics doesn't work. Objectionable truth. The middle class has evaporated. My generation's buying power is a quarter of that of the baby boomers at this time, even though, objectively speaking, we are the most educated and highly trained generation America has produced, and there's more of us than there was baby boomers, and we have a quarter of their buying power. And those are just straight statistical facts across the board. I think that would be something that we might want to start at.
Now, I think Jeremy and I would disagree that our generation was the smartest one, but we'll save that one for a different time. Because 81 Club for life, baby.
Say smartest, highly trained and educated.
Understood. Kevin, what are your thoughts, man?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
I'm just open floor. It's kind of open floor. I'm going to get into the dialogue. Go ahead.
Again, I just did a little traveling, so I have that on my mind, and I'm thinking about all these huge pleasure piers that were built all along the coast of California, in San Diego, the Balboa Park. Have you been there? You guys been to Balboa Park?
I think I have. Yeah.
It's got this amazing Spanish Renaissance architecture. I mean, who built this? And it was built in a city of a town of 40,000 people by the businessmen and women, for a World's Fair. When you see what people were able to accomplish, of much poorer people with way less technology were able to accomplish 100 years ago, 80 years ago, that's what people want. And I think that, to Dallas's point about, people looking back to a time when there was a lot more economic prosperity, where there was growth, where you saw your kids and you saw people's economic opportunities advancing, and they're able to move up in this world. You didn't have to have a college degree or a master's degree to get a job. We were able to do that a long time ago, even though we were a lot poorer, a lot less sophisticated. and had a lot less technology, and it's frustrating that we can't do that now.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. That's what I feel "Make America Great Again" means. Let's use this huge wealth that we have, technological and otherwise, to make this the best place in the world and make the whole world better.
Okay, very good. Who else?
I think I'm not going to pretend to know what Donald Trump means when he says "Make America Great Again" or who he meant to talk to. I think who heard him though was the demographic that we're talking about a lot, which is white men, and I think they mean, I don't know, pre-1965, which is Voting Rights Act. There's not a lot of things that I've heard Donald Trump say that are true. I looked through that Twitter archive earlier, and I was looking at stuff. And one of the things that he did say is Republicans would never win again if it was easier to vote. And that is talking about the issue of minorities and women voting. And I'd love to not include women. I would really love not to include women, but there's a huge segment of the country right now who are white supremacist women. So and I could be wrong about what his intent was, but those people definitely heard him, and we're seeing him stand up.
So what do you mean by you don't want to include women? What do you mean by that?
I'd love to say that women are innocent in this. White women, I should say white women. I should be very clear there. But there's a distressing number. I don't remember off the top of my head the number of women that at this point in history, white women voted for Donald Trump. And I love to say I'm not part of the problem, but that segment of the demographics are part of the problem too.
So Rainbow, here's something interesting actually, because one of the, before we got together, I told everybody to write down some questions that we could all ask each other. And one of the questions I had specifically for you and for everybody in the panel is that, why, when he said grab him by the pussy, right? This is an adult show. So when he said grab him by the pussy, why didn't he lose the women vote? Like what happened there? And it's specific to white women, right? Because white women came out and voted for him unanimously. Like it was huge, right? Like they came out and supported Donald Trump. Not only the first term, but the second one. I mean, coming the second time too, they voted for him. Why didn't that stop most women in their tracks of like, this guy is not somebody who I should be supporting? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that I think it's scary to be a woman. I think it's a very scary thing to be a woman. And when you live in a society that a segment of it is going to give you some power to protect yourself and protect your family, you kind of grasp onto that power. And if you feel empowered by a message like the message of like Christian values being protected by certain things and Christian values protecting you, then you might have more of a tendency to vote in a way that's not necessarily in your best interest as far as actual issues. Wow. So if there's one, again, I don't know, because I wasn't a person who felt that way. Like I was already pretty much decided on whether I would vote for Donald Trump or not by the time that came out. But I wasn't in the least bit surprised by it. There's also a segment of those women who will tell you that that was already fake, that he didn't actually say that. So I don't know.
I'd like to direct this over to the men who have, because what we're not going to do is speak for people that we're not, right? So we're not going to speak for women. But for those of you who are married or have girlfriends, did the discussion come up? What were your thoughts? What was the thoughts that your better halves, if you will, had on that, if they had any? Floor is open.
I mean, Daria was, I don't not throw her under the bus, but she was pretty horrified by Donald Trump. Her sister and my friends' wives were all pretty horrified by it. But one by one, I saw all of them kind of change their minds. And I think one of the things, well, look, you have two people on this program. I voted for Donald Trump. I don't know if Jeremy, if you did, but that we feel that we're not racists, we're not sexist or homophobic, and we kind of feel like the whole thing's a mischaracterization.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, at least I can say for my wife, who I watched her transform on this, is just kind of watching them and starting to see that the way things are being portrayed or depicted in the news the next day and what we actually watched with our own eyes were totally different. And you see that a few times, and then you start discounting everything. So it might be that he says some really terrible stuff, but you've heard him accused of saying you should inject yourself with bleach, or accused of saying the KKK were very fine people, or accused of bragging about sexual assault. When you go, I think he's being crass. I don't think he was literally saying that I grab women, you know. And so anyway, you hear enough of that stuff, and then you start tuning it out, and you go, well, what else is he saying? That was my experience. I came around on him. I didn't like him the first time, and I'll throw Derry under the bus. She felt the same way in the end.
Yeah. Jeremy, you are married, right? Like, did you have this discussion with your wife? Like, what? Tell us about it.
Yeah. I mean, Renee and I have, we've talked about stuff like this several times, and during the 2016 election, and I feel like you decide what you're willing to justify putting up with, and what you're not willing to overlook with whatever candidate. You look at, I feel like people look at whatever platform, they pick what they like, they ignore what they don't like, and they use that to justify who they're aligning themselves with. Renee and I talked about it, and we both kind of had the same feeling that, I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict. And if I was in a public forum and had people looking at ways to disparage my reputation, to discredit things that I say, I have said and done horrible, horrible things. Does my past or anyone's past define me 100%? It has helped shape who people are, but that doesn't mean that that's who they have to continue to be or who they are at the time. You can look at any politician and you can find things that they have said and done in the past that will horrify any number of people. I would tend to agree with what Kevin was saying. I guess what I'll say is media is a business. Mm-hmm. They exist to make money. So when they report news, they're doing it to increase viewership, to increase circulation, to increase the likelihood of being able to charge more for commercial time. And so they tend to put a spin on whatever is pushing their agenda to their demographic. So if, Donald Trump said that, I'm not saying he didn't. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it was something that I by any way agree with. But I feel like you have to take what is being said to us in the media, and you've got to kind of wade through the sensationalism and get to the bottom of things, decide for yourself kind of what the meaning is, and figure out, okay, am I willing to put up with that in order to get these things that I do agree with out of this candidate? I think as a person, Trump's a horrible individual. I would not hang out with him. I would not want him around my family. I feel like he was an opportunistic with the presidential race in 2016. I think he's very egotistical. I think he was trying to capitalize on a situation that he saw. There's many things that I feel like went into him running, and I feel like he was preaching the message that he felt was going to get him the most positive reaction out of whatever group was willing to listen to him.
Okay, Rainbow, it looks like you got some thoughts on this. Dallas, did you want to chime in?
Yeah. Well, if we're gonna talk about Trump and whether or not we talked about women about him.
Yeah.
I'm a big numbers guy. So when I started to look at things, I didn't really have an opinion on Trump. When he got before the 2016 election, I have always had this perception of where I wasn't a real adult and that politics were done by older, more educated people. And they kind of knew what they were doing and what was going on. And then we elected the guy from The Apprentice. And I just kind of paused and I went,
this is America.
Okay, what? Like, we all watched that show. Wait, that guy as a president? Right. Okay, sure. All right. I hope he does a good job here. And then I kept hearing this stuff from people. I'm like, is he this bad? Like, is this just all like sensationalized? Like, what is this? So I started to dive into it myself, going past, like Jeremy said, like people definitely sensationalize a lot of what Trump did, which I think was such a bad thing to do, because when you come for him, he has so much documented things that he has done that you can just come correct every time, and you don't have to like throw a lob pass. Like, you can come in with hard truths on what he's actually done, and it's documented, but the media just kept trying to get him on everything. Anything he did, they would do it. So as Kevin said, it's like you stop listening to it because it's just all like afraid, and you're like, oh, well, they were wrong on this one thing, so these other 6 can't be true. And it's like, well, you can be wrong on this, and these other 6 things can still very much be true and valid, even if they are wrong here. It's like, yeah, you're right, he didn't do that thing, but that doesn't mean he didn't do these other ones as well. And I read a statistic that really blew my mind a while back, and I'm sure it's at a much larger number now, but there is a website called like trumpfacts.com, and they have documented everything that he has said and gone mostly false, just like outright lies. And in his 4-year term, he has over 20,000 documented falsitudes. So like either like mostly false, or just a straight up lie, like documented lie, right? His own voice, his own words coming out. Just that's over 14 a day live. And those are just the documented ones. So that means like he could have lied even more that we don't have documented. And I know politicians lie, but 13 a day, 20,000 in 4 years, like that's just something that I can't like. So that means either he doesn't know what he's talking about, or he just actively lies out of compulsion. And either one is not something that I like to get behind.
What would be like a big one? Like, what's the biggest just total whopper?
One of his lies, talking about how white supremacy isn't an issue. That there aren't terrorists on the conservative right, even when the FBI releases a study saying the biggest threat to our nation is homegrown terrorists from alt-right.
That's a big one.
And the Federal Bureau of Investigation comes out with a study where they're just like, oh yeah, you know how everyone thought it was Antifa or BLM this past year setting off firebombs and stuff? But of the 50 people arrested in riot-related crimes and charges, not a single one had ties back to BLM or Antifa. But the ones who did were all white supremacist groups.
So let's give Kevin a chance to respond to that. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Well, I what I've been looking for, and I did at one point, I wanted to, because you hear ad nauseum that the guy lies all the time. I thought, okay, well, what are the top 5? And it's hard to find one where you go, this is not a difference of opinion. This isn't that he was speaking off the cuff. He had his numbers wrong. You disagree, or he could be wrong. I mean, he could just be flat wrong. But what I was looking for was the closest I could find is he said we had the biggest crowd. But even that one, when you actually look at what he said and when he said it, he was just wrong. He was just wrong.
Well, but he over exaggerates.
He exaggerates. But what I was looking for is give me a lie. Yeah. Give me a lie that's as bald-faced as saying that my wife is the first person in her family to have gone to college, and that I come from a family of coal miners who would come out from the mine and play football every evening.
Yeah.
None of which is remotely even close to being true about Joe Biden, but he said it. And then he tried to say, well, I was quoting somebody else, but he said it. I mean, he said, this is my life. So give me one whopper, one thing that's like, yeah, you
I got one for you.
Everyone.
Libel. He was caught in a civil case. He said he didn't rape a woman, so she civilly sued him, and she won because it was libel for him to say that he didn't. She couldn't catch him criminally, and I can't, off the top of my head, I don't know the specific one, but he gave out millions of dollars to her in a libel case because it was proved in a civil court that he was lying. She couldn't catch him criminally because enough time had passed, but he has a civil court case against him for libel, in relation to a rape charge.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Let's give Jeremy some time. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, because my question in response to documented lies, regardless of what politician is saying them, is what was the intention of the lie and what was the outcome of the lie? Did Trump making claims about numbers of people at events, or saying the KKK are good people, or downplaying domestic white terrorism, did that increase domestic white terrorism? Did that cause more cells to start springing up all over? Did that incite them to become outwardly violent? Or Joe Biden lying about his past? What did that change? So to me, it comes down to those questions of what were they trying to accomplish? Was it just bravado? Was it just bragging? Was it posturing? Was it trying to relate to whatever group they were speaking to at the time? And what happened because of that?
Rainbow,
I got a very specific one for you on that.
Let's give Rainbow a chance to speak. I believe she wanted to say some things. Go ahead.
Well, there is something that I think Dallas said about all of those lies being given equal weight. So when the media does portray someone as a liar, and they say this lie about this is equal to this lie about this, and they cover all of it like that, it does devalue the value of catching him in a lie, because we're so used to hear. I don't watch news on TV. I read news, and I'm a follower of Donald Trump on Twitter. So I'm not talking about some kind of spin on something. I'm talking about daily what this guy says. And like, you do just get completely overwhelmed, because you're like, you can't, we have lived for 4 years, for more like 6, with this guy having a fairly large impact on, the whole political process.
Yeah.
And that's just I'm so tired of talking about him. Like, I don't even want to do it here. I would much rather talk about, like, so if there's people that believe the lies, I don't know how to talk to them.
We're going to get into that
at this point.
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that, because that's going to be the next thing that we get into, because Dallas, let me give you a chance to say what you had to say real quick. Go ahead and say it. But then we are going to transition. We're going to transition, and let's really get into it and start talking about how we live together, because we're not going to change people. Dallas, go ahead.
All right. So you said you wanted like a specific stat on what he lied about and then the direct effect that it could have. So I got 2 for you. One of them would be of his dangerous. I don't know if it counts as a lie, but it would be more of like his dangerous rhetoric, or how he talks can negatively impact areas that he's been in, or incentivize people to do things that we don't like. And so you said we can do screen sharing, or do you want me to just like copy and paste this into the chat?
We can do screen sharing if you'd like. If you want to share your screen.
I can just copy and paste this one right here. So this was, they did a study on the counties that he went to during his 2016 campaign. Okay. And in all of the counties that he visited and had rallies in that subsequent year or so, I don't remember if it was a year or the next couple of years, they saw a 226% increase in hate crimes in those counties.
Let me try to get this. Can you share your screen, buddy?
Oh yeah, screen share.
Yeah, do that. Screen. And then that'll pop up for me.
There we go.
Yeah. And folks, we get audio. I'll do this just so you guys know. If you guys have something, and this is how I want to do it. If you guys have something that you want to prove or something like that, again, this is a dialogue, not a debate. No one's walking away. We're not trying to change anybody's mind. Your opinion is not right; it is yours. But if you have something that you want to share with us, we can absolutely do that. So share the screen with us. So
I'm going to go to here, and then we can hop over to this tab right here. So this is just the thing on it, from a hate crimes increase of 226% in places Trump held a campaign rally in 2016. Just showing that if you watched any of his campaigns or rallies, the kind of rhetoric he spread, the okayness with just violence or pushing people out who weren't a part of his group in there or were protesting his campaign rallies. And then another one on that where you asked for specific lies that would directly affect or negatively impact the country. They also did another study that I don't know if this was, Cornell. Team of Cornell Alliance for Science evaluated 38 million articles published by traditional English language, and they found that 40% of the disinformation on COVID over this past year originated with Donald Trump.
Wow.
Because if you have a president who says something, a lot of people are going to take that word at face value. So if you're going to be the president, you're going to say something, you want to make sure that it's correct and true. And that is why we spent 7 months of a pandemic where the entire world agreed that it was real and a threat. Where here in this country, we had to debate on whether or not masks, which we have used since the Black Plague, were an effective form of PPE in the medical field.
Well,
and a lot of that came from him.
Yeah,
40% of the disinformation.
But that's now if we're gonna get into COVID, we're gonna get into it, right? But I do want to transition the conversation over to what Rainbow was talking about, because it is about what do we do? You know, what do we do? But the reality is that Trump wasn't the first one to misinform about COVID. Fauci was one of the first and loudest people to misinform people. First, we were told not to get masks, we should not be going out and getting masks, you know, and Fauci was the one who was leading that campaign. Then it switched to that. When you have something so serious, and this is just my personal opinion from what I saw, and, you know, we did the social distancing hotline, we heard from people all over the country, and there was division. And the biggest place where the division came from was the fact that we didn't know, no one knew what the hell was going on. No one knew what the hell was going on. You know, Trump was calling it the Kung Fu virus, which I think is completely terrible. And I'm going to, in my personal opinion, I believe that that's a racist term. He said that, and I think we all heard him say that, right? That's just my personal opinion. But, and then we have like Fauci saying, no, stop buying masks. The hospitals need them. But then everyone needs to have masks, and now the hospitals don't have masks. And so it's like it's just this interesting thing that we keep going back and forth on. And it's hard. Dallas, go ahead.
That point right there where you say the misinformation from Dr. Fauci, that was actually planned by the government, because they realized that if they told everyone that they needed to get masks, they didn't believe people would wait long enough to enable the medical professionals and those working on the front line to get the masks they needed. They literally told us a lie, which they shouldn't have. They should have been able to just tell us as people and be like, hey, don't get the masks. We got to make sure we get them to the people who need them first.
Right.
So that right there, bad move. Definitely shouldn't have lied. But then people are like, well, they said we didn't need the mask. I'm like, well, yeah. But then we had that tape audio from late January that Trump was on, where they knew it was airborne. They knew the masks were effective. They knew it was deadly. And then he's on record with his own voice saying that he likes to downplay it because he doesn't want people to panic. So he knew, and he just lied knowingly. Yes, and it's on record that he did.
At the same, you're right, and listen, I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, we can't put all the blame on Trump, and that's
it's not all on him. But for when people say that, like, oh well, he didn't know any better, it's like, but he did.
Yeah,
he did, and he lied. So he's not the only one who lied about it, or that I want to hold accountable. But that's who we're talking about here. If we want to talk about Pelosi or other people, we could do that on a different one. And I got a lot about them too.
I know you do, baby, but I do want to transition the conversation, because so Kevin, you and I got into a conversation today before we began the show today, and this is really what I think is going to speak to what you were saying, Rainbow, because we're exhausted, right? And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring everybody together with absolutely different views, right? I think that we all kind of feel the same way, but we come from very different perspectives, right? And so I think what's important to understand is that regardless of what's happened, right? Because we just had the Parler shutdown. Parler was just shut down, right? And I know, Kevin, you've got some thoughts on that. Parler was just shut down. Trump has now been silenced from all social media, right? And so now we've created this space where you're being canceled, right? You're being canceled if you have views or whatever. You know, we saw what happened at the Capitol, and so a lot of people are blaming Trump on that. I kind of feel like it wasn't just Trump on that either. You know, all these platforms are closing or shutting down Trump, but the reality is that you allowed him to do all this stuff for so long. You allowed him to do this stuff for 4 years and never silenced him. But now that he's not the president anymore, now you want to silence him. So so this goes back to your point, Jeremy, where the media also has a say in what's happening in this country and where it pushes this pendulum, right? Because if you're silencing him now, what kept you from doing that before the Capitol happened, right? Before the revolution at the raid at the Capitol happened, you know, where were you at then? So, Kevin, you and I were talking about living in a world, and this is where it's going to get a little controversial. And I want everybody's like true ideas about this. Living in a world where, you know, so what? People hate me because I'm black. I really don't care anymore. And and I'm just going to speak from my own perspective. If someone hates me because I'm black, I don't care. I don't care. I think if someone doesn't want to bake my cake because I'm gay, I don't care. I really honestly don't care, because the reality is this. And I'm going to get into the the breakdown as how I see this thing should roll out here, is that if you're a mom and pop and you don't want to bake you don't want to serve black people, that's your choice. That's just truly how I feel. Is it legal? No, it's not. But this is a forum for open discussion. If you are a publicly traded company, right? If you're a publicly traded company, meaning that you are that people can invest in your company, I think that you need to adhere to the rules, right? You need to be open for all, business for all. You are open to the public. If you are, and Kevin, I want you to kind of get into what we discussed with that too. If you are transportation, you have to be open to all. If you are a bank, you have to be open to all, right? If you are a publicly traded company that serves the public, you need to be open to all. But if you're a mom and pop, and you don't want to make a gay cake, and you want to put on your storefront that we only make straight people's cakes, guess what? You're going to phase out. You're going to phase out, and that's a choice that you make, and that's something that I don't really care. You don't want to make my cake? I'll just go get my cake made somewhere else. Are we in a dangerous space when we are forcing? Everybody, I want you to take the floor on this. Are we in a dangerous space when we are forcing people to adhere to my beliefs, right? Rainbow, floor is yours.
I got such a big smile on my face, and I'm sitting here like giggling and giddy because like I've been watching over the last, week or so, capitalism working, and feeling like nice feelings about capitalism, which is a strange feeling for me. But yeah, I mean, I just, Kevin said at the beginning of the show that he had to start being really careful what he supported or what he openly supported.
Yeah.
So I think that every person in their personal life should be careful about what they support. And if you support some messed up stuff, there might be some consequences. You might lose your funding. You might lose your customers. You might lose your business. And I'm watching that happen, and it's making my week a little bit. I'm sorry. It's making me happy. For one.
Jeremy, what are your thoughts, Jeremy? Go ahead.
Well, getting back just a little bit, to Parler being shut down and Trump being shut down on various platforms. Social media, it's public gossip as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just electronic worldwide gossip. Too many people will take a post that somebody else saw and copied and shared, and all of a sudden that's fact. And so, and it's a business. Facebook, Parler, they're businesses. They're not infringing on freedom of speech. They're saying, we're a business. We don't want your patronage in our business. So I don't care who gets shut off, who doesn't get shut off. I don't need to rely on Twitter or Facebook or whatever to get my information. I don't feel like they're reputable sources of information. So, I don't know. To me, it's ridiculous. I feel like social media, the term social media is ridiculous. It's entertainment. That's what social media is. Entertainment. It's not a source of facts. It shouldn't be. And if it is, and that's your only source of information, then I don't know what we can do for you to help.
Hey man, so I recently got off Facebook, and the reason why is because I call it it's a like wasteland. You're just looking for likes. I was drinking that Kool-Aid. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get these likes, right? And it became so embarrassing to me because it was like, what am I doing here, man? Like it's a like wasteland. Kevin, what are your thoughts? Speak up.
Well, Rainbow, so you identified it as a left libertarian and kind of an anarchist. That is a subject, maybe off the air, I'd like to understand better. I've never fully understood what left libertarianism is. But I think, so my right libertarian instincts are that if private companies can do what they want, if they want to deplatform, delist, whatever, that's their business. But there's kind of this background assumption to all that, which is that private businesses will do what maximizes their profits. So whatever generates the most utility for their customers. And it's hard to understand how it benefits Amazon to choke out a company that's using their web servers. It's hard to understand. I can see maybe Twitter benefits by losing, 75 million followers or something. Maybe overall it creates the ecosystem that they want. But it seems like these companies are doing this for other reasons, for political reasons. And there's a long time since, at least since the 19th century, there's been what they call reasonable and non-discriminatory rate regulation on common carriers like trains. And the idea was that if you operate a private railroad, you can't say, hey, you're an unwed mother, you can't ride the train or whatever. You can't do that sort of thing. You have to be open to all comers on an equal basis because it's what they call a natural monopoly. And so I think it's fair to ask, I don't think something like Twitter is a natural monopoly because there can be something like Parler. But when your financial institutions, when the companies that build the infrastructure of the web like AWS, we'll see if there can be some sort of free blockchain-based alternative will emerge out of this, and maybe there will. But as of right now, it's a little bit scary, I think, for the prospects of free speech that you have companies like Amazon regulating speech. It's weird.
Yeah. We have a viewer who says social media clout is a drug. Some people get hooked. Austin, Dallas, what are your thoughts?
On that question or overall?
Overall, you can speak to that comment as well. Yeah.
That comment, yeah, definitely. I mean, we've all felt it. I feel like I was one of the young kids who hopped on MySpace when I could. My parents held baback. We never had a computer in the house.
You were on MySpace, young man?
Huh?
You were on MySpace?
Yes, I was. I was on MySpace. I had a little bit of coding, had my top 8, put the girl you like number 2, be like, hey, top friends. Have my own playlist, when you hop on my page. And I went over to Facebook in high school because that's where all the girls were. So that's where I went. But what we didn't understand was it is a drug. Like everything that's come out about social media, it pings your brain in all the same ways that drugs will or sugar will. And we all got the keys to the liquor cabinet before we knew what it was.
Isn't that powerful? I think.
And 10 years down the road, everyone's hopelessly addicted to these little boxes we carry around with us now. And we don't even realize how much pull it has till you leave your phone in the other room and you're like, ooh, where's my phone at? Like, I need that thing over here. Because what if it's not here and I can't grab it and like check? And that's something that I felt at 28 years old that I'm trying to like now check and be like, oh, wait, that has a lot more pull on me than I would like to think.
Yeah.
And it is. It'll trap you in there where you'll be debating randomly with someone on Facebook for like 3 hours one day, getting all riled up and emotional. And then I'm like, this is what it's designed to do. It just wants to keep me here looking at the screen, typing and engaging instead of like going out and actually doing something about what I'm discussing with someone on this. I think discussions are good places to have. You talked about with the train or equal access to everyone. If that's going to be brought into here, then we'll have to talk about how internet is very rapidly becoming a human right. And if we're going to talk about social media and access to sharing with people, then we're going to need to talk about how people need access to the internet because it's very rapidly becoming something that if you don't have, you can't really operate at the same level or have equal opportunity that everyone else will. And I think that's something that we're headed towards really quickly as well.
I think that's a very powerful statement there. So, and I think it's a great transition because, my thoughts on the whole social media being kind of like a devil in disguise, if you will, is that social media has caused some good though, right? Black Lives Matter, right? Sure. This is a great segue to talk about Black Lives Matter. I want to talk about Black Lives Matter. I want to get everybody's perspective on Black Lives Matter then and now. Right, like because I think that's important, right? Like Black Lives Matter, January to Black Lives Matter, January 2020 to January 2021. I want to get your thoughts on it, right? Black Lives Matter would not have happened had it not been for social media. Had we not seen that video of the man losing his life with the officer with the knee on his neck, Black Lives Matter would not have gotten as big as it was. We can discuss whether Black Lives Matter was good or bad. I have some thoughts on that. I'd like to speak last on that, if that's possible. But let's jump into that. Black Lives Matter. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think Black Lives Matter.
Thank you.
Yes, I do. And, I think there's been a huge and important and very impactful shift over the last year of people's opinions and what people think of social injustice in this country. Yeah. And that has, and I will say that as a person that has happened to this year, because I didn't think of myself as particularly privileged in a lot of ways. And that has changed over the last year. I've decided it has become a thing that I'm willing to talk about with my Black friends and my brown friends. I've been willing to talk about race with them, no matter how uncomfortable it is, for the first time in my life, because I want to understand that. And those conversations have happened, and there has been a shift in how I view myself and my relationship with the state, you know, and the position that I have that is privileged because of the color of my skin has definitely shifted. It's shifted absolutely because I saw some shit on social media and I started talking to people.
I'd say I had a similar experience to Rainbow this past year. I went camping with a childhood best friend of mine that I haven't seen in almost like a decade. When he was like 15, he had a lot of testosterone in him when he hit puberty and got a little crazy. So he got sent off to Seattle to live with his father. And I never made it out over to the West Coast to visit him. And we ran into each other this past summer, went on a camping trip, and we really talked about things because we used to be little hoodlums, sneaking out at night, running around public parks and, you know, sneaking into the pool. But he was always way more cautious of cops or even getting caught than I was. So even if we're at the park past dark and like a cop would pull up, he'd be like, dude, we got to get out of here. And he would just like leave. And I'd like walk up to the cop and be like, hey, man, you know what time it is? Oh, guess I got to go home past my curfew. And then like I would just walk away. But like they were always more cautious. And it never like registered to me at a young age as to where the apprehension came or how they acted certain ways, or even when I'd be hanging out with them. And I had my best friend was Black when I moved to Michigan. I never met a Black person before I moved to Michigan. I think I was like 10. Or like, maybe I had met one, but like I didn't have any friends. I didn't really know anyone. And my first friend was Black. And when my grandma came up to visit us like 2 years later, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going down the street to Michael. And she's like, oh, yeah, is that like your Black friend? I was like, yeah. She's like, well, make sure you come back. And I came back like 3 hours later instead of 2. And she was worried and frantic. And I was like, why are you so worried? Like I was just down the street at my friend's house. And there's like those little things that like you don't like really pay attention to because they aren't prevalent to like the front of your mind until you look back and you go, oh, maybe that wasn't just something. Maybe she was cautious because he was my Black friend. Maybe he was nervous around cops because of his experiences that he had with cops at such a young age, where if me, a nondescript white dude who's 130 pounds, cop sees me in the park late at night, whatever, no one's going to pay me like a second mind. Like I'm not really going to get a second look. My 6'2", 190-pound Black friend who's 15 kind of looks like a grown man at the park late at night. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of things that have been brought to the front of my attention over this past year that I never really had to address because I am a straight white male in America. Okay. And, like, I never really had to face these truths. And this past year, it's been a lot to, like, really look at yourself and understand that your life has been difficult and you've had your own struggles in your own way, but then to be able to admit that my sexuality, my gender, and my skin tone haven't been one of those things that made my life hard.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Well said. Kevin or Jeremy, if you care to.
I'll go first, and Jeremy can temper me. So you'll say something nicer than what I'm going to say. I think that this obsessive focus on racial, ethnic, gender identity has been a huge mistake, has set us back a long ways. And the sooner we can forget about this whole episode, move on, and go back to having that being a secondary or incidental part of who we are and not the main thing. And just remember that it's not polite to think about. It's not polite to bring up race, and especially in any sort of disparaging way when you have, prejudices or biases or whatever, to be aware enough to suppress those, move them aside, check those biases, and as much as possible, just try to get on back to treating everybody as individuals. And I think the sooner we can do that, the better, because it hasn't been a healthy year for anybody, least of all for Black people.
Sorry to jump in there, but you said to get on back to treating people as equals. When were we treating people as equals?
And what?
Well, maybe a bigger discussion. I feel that when I was growing up, there was an understanding that you don't talk about race.
Okay. That's your perspective. Jeremy, did you want to speak in on this? Do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I kind of feel like walking through a landmine discussing topics like this as a straight white male.
Well, I haven't spoken yet, so just keep that.
At Kelvin's urging, I read White Fragility a couple of times.
Yeah.
It was difficult to read.
Yeah.
It was difficult to hear some of the things that were presented in that book. Some of the things made me angry. Some of the things made me look at myself and my situation and kind of really evaluate my life based on things that I have no control over. I was born white. I was born a male. I'm born straight. So it's tough to think about the fact that I have these things that I didn't ask for, and that in a lot of ways I'm vilified because of it. And I can't change it, So I feel like situations like George Floyd and the following BLM movement that really got going this year. I was in Seattle. I work in downtown Seattle. I saw a lot of things firsthand. I feel like it fans the flames. I feel like the response that the riots, protests, demonstrations, whatever side you're on, and you look at it and what you decide to label it, I feel like they were 100% driven out of emotion, and that's fine. But again, I go back to I feel like I've said it several times. What were they trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
What did they accomplish?
Yeah.
Most people are set in their ways. Most people are not going to make drastic and dramatic changes in their view of the world. And so by looking at the incident at the Capitol, looking at what was going on with BLM and all over the country and all over the world, people that did not believe that in the movement were only entrenched further in their beliefs. And people that were supportive became more entrenched in their beliefs. It's an individual thing. As individual people, we have to decide how deep into our own selves we want to look and how honest we're going to be with ourselves. And then we can make some changes to try and impact things for the better or for the worse. But looking and getting angry because of violence and protest and destruction of property and rioting, and just nonstop 24-hour news coverage and being bombarded on social media, that's not going to fix anything. To me, that's going to make it worse in a reactionary way. It's not going to be a true and long-lasting change.
So I'm gonna kind of put a button on this, right? So this is my perception, this is my perspective, this is like my reality of it. And not to say that I am the voice of all Black people. That's one of the issues that I find that happens a lot when we talk about race, is that it becomes so, the Black experience becomes so defined, and it's like it's a very hard and heavy weight to bear. It's a very hard and heavy weight to bear as a Black man. It honestly is. And what I saw happen with Black Lives Matter, and the reason why I bring it up is because, we talked about social media. We talked about the movement of, how social media is dangerous, but how also social media can help. And I think that Black Lives Matter started with good intention. I think that it did a lot of greatness in the world. There are laws that are changed. The whole defunding of police is happening. I agree with that. I think that police there's way too much power given to police, and they have too much. They have such an ability to end people's lives on things that healthcare workers deal with every single day. That's insane to me. That's just insane to me. This has nothing to do with even race. However, because of Black Lives Matter, because of police brutality and whatnot, that's where Black Lives Matter came from. I watched Black Lives Matter, and I've seen the good that's happened. I've seen the laws have changed. I've seen that. But then, and again, this goes back to my buddy Kevin here, is that we got really deep into these conversations. And what I decided to do was step away from the echo chamber that I was in with the whole Black Lives Matter, and just joined an All Lives Matter group, right? So because that was the we're always polar opposites. It's either pro-vaccine, anti-vax. You're either Black, you're white. You're either pro anti-racism or whatever. We're so divided, and that's going to be the next thing that we transition into. But I joined an All Lives Matter group, and what I saw in this All Lives Matter group was that All Lives Matter, my personal opinion, the group that I joined, this is just full of a bunch of racist white people, and I'm just gonna say it just is what it is. I joined this group. I joined this group, and I was as cordial and just respectful and yes ma'am, no ma'am. You know, I came in I didn't say yes ma'am, no ma'am. I didn't say yes, don't. Like, no, but I was just as cordial. I was like, yeah, you know, I asked very simple questions, and the reality is that I was called nigger, I was called faggot, I was called, you know, I was told, what, you don't belong in this group, and I received such hate. Then I joined a really truly offensive memes group because I really got into making memes, right? And this is all going to come together. I joined an offensive meme making group, and I was on that mission, right? I wanted to offend racist white people, so I was making these memes that were like offensive to racist white people. And what was crazy is that joining this group, your meme got rated. They were like, well, that's not clever enough by white people. People were like, okay, well, that's not clever enough. That one's kind of lame. But then I would hit a couple of times. They'd be like, oh yeah, that's good. That's good. And then I would see other ones that were made by black people. And then I would see more that were made that were made, you know, clowning on black people. Then I saw ones that were clowning gay people. Then I saw ones that were clowning women. And I was making one that was clowning racist and white people. And then it just all became like, it became numb to me. Not in a bad way, but just in a way of like, I don't really care anymore. You know, I don't really care anymore that this meme is truly offensive to black people. I don't have to give it power. That's what I walked away understanding and just kind of like taking myself back and realizing like, here we are, we want to be seen. And this is my personal opinion. This is my experience of the movement. We want to be seen so much, right? We want to be seen so much. We want to be respected. We want to be heard. And I believe that that's important. I do believe that's important. Where it matters most is amongst each other. And this is speaking against black people. And I will always say, and this is what I've always said and will always say, is that racism is a white issue. It's a white issue. It's not going to go away in our lifetime. This is my personal opinion. It's not going to go away in our lifetime. It is the job of white people in this lifetime to take, you know, to try to, you know, get it away, to have that tough conversation with your mom, to have that tough conversation with your dad or your sister or your brother. Or your uncle. It's important for you to have those conversations. For black people, anti-blackness is our issue. Anti-blackness and judging each other's blackness. Well, you're not black if. You're not black if that. Oh, Candace so is she's not black. She's Uncle Tom. That's a black issue, right? And the only people that can address and do that is black people. And my final thought on Black Lives Matter is that none of our communities were improved. Sure, we may change laws that are going to essentially change white people or force white people to do us better. But the biggest thought that came to mind is that white people treat white people like white people, and that's where that white supremacy comes from. That's where that systemic racism comes from. Whether or not you agree with it, I believe it exists. I don't care that it exists anymore. This is where my head's at. If black people treated black people like white people treat white people, we would not be in these we would not be having these same conversations. That's truly my thoughts on it. You guys can speak on it, but it's really, you know, that just is what it is. It's a black issue, and so those are my thoughts on it. You know, does that strike anybody weird? What are you guys' thoughts?
You should have joined a knitting group. You went from the Black Panthers and said, "Oh, this isn't maybe fitting. Let me go check out the KKK."
KKK, right?
99.9% of the world isn't either of those things.
Yeah, but again, but the point that I'm making is that I was able to dive into things that made me uncomfortable, right? And try to like listen to people that do not agree with me, do not say what I say, and at the end of the day. And it was that meme group. I think that really offensive meme group was really what helped me, because at the end of the day, I just realized like I just don't want to subscribe to this anymore. I don't want to bear this weight that I have to wake up and be black every day. I just want to wake up and be Kelvin. You know, I don't want to have to always have the black conversation. I don't want to always have to be fighting for someone to respect me because I'm black. If you don't like me because I'm black, cool. I'm going to go to somebody black and do business with them. That again goes right, and it comes full circle, goes right back to like, how do we live in a racist society? Because racism is not going to go anywhere. Kyle Rittenhouse was 17 years old, right? Now, whether or not you think he was racist or not, that's you know, we can talk about that. But the reality is that racism is taught in the homes. It's passed down through generation to generation to generation, and it's all generational trauma that we're dealing with. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Any final thoughts on that? And then I want to actually transition to what's next. Like, how do we live in a society where we don't agree with each other? Like, what is the next step? So final thoughts on Black Lives Matter, if you have any, and then let's open it up for, how do we move forward, guys? And guys, the phone lines are open. Give us a call. I'd like to get at least one of you guys to call in. The phone lines are wide open, 602-704-6716. Call me now. Floor is open.
Well, you talked about how it's white supremacy is like a white issue. And I believe that wholeheartedly, because the issue that we face is that it's how white people are treating Black people in America. And whether or not you speak on Kyle Rittenhouse saying at 17 years old, if he was a racist, I don't think he was anything because he's 17. I think he doesn't know who Kyle was or is or who can become. I think he's just a 17-year-old kid who got caught up on the wrong parts of a Facebook, and not to excuse anything he did at 17. He's a functioning person and should be held accountable for his actions. Definitely, he crossed state lines and did something unspeakable. Regardless, he chose to put himself in the situations that led to that. But I think, where you're talking about, where you're like, you don't want to wake up and always have to have the Black conversation. And I don't think you'll have to, because the difference I feel here than what I'm seeing from the 60s and 70s through social media is the fact that we are realizing it. We're starting to pinpoint what the actual problem is to why these problems are still here now 50 years later. And when you get people like Kyle Rittenhouse who are saying racism is taught, it is these small pockets or towns in America where we don't talk about race, like Kevin said, or we don't talk about politics. So then you could be like living next door to someone for like ever and not understand that they hate you because you're Black, because you've never been told to have that conversation. But we're having that conversation now where we are. And so once we can have the conversation and then like look at what the actual root issue of the problem is, then hold the people accountable or alter the systems that do it. Because you're right. You're like, if you don't like me because I'm Black, I'm gonna go to someone else and do business. But if like, you're in an all-white town and like they don't want to deal with you because you're Black, like you don't really have that option. Or you like, well, you could move, and it's like, well, then how are you going to get money to move? Yeah. And then okay, well, then once you get the money, like how are you going to get the car? And there's all these other issues instead of dealing with the root cause, which is how we treat each other, even when we have differences of opinion. And it's because what we're doing right here is such a new thing to talk about it. Woo! Because we never talked about it in America. We don't talk about how our huge economic boom and what made America was off of the back of slaves. It was the cotton boom. That's what built America. But when I was going to school and we learned about it, we were just like, oh yeah, we had slaves and we did this, and then we were this amazing thing. But we don't talk about how like we created the chattel slavery and brought it over from Africa, and that's how we did it. And then how when they stopped being slaves, we then created the state police forces to round up Black males and criminalize them for stealing food off of land because, well, when they stopped being slaves, they didn't have jobs, they didn't have anywhere to go, and they're hungry and traveling, so they stop on someone's farmland and grab some food, snatch them up, put them in a work party. Well, now that kid's fatherless, and then you can have like these cycles, generations after generations after generations. No. But we have people now here in my state that are in prison for nonviolent possession charges on marijuana, like still serving like 25 years in prison. And then there's a business down the street making profit and giving tax dollars to the state for marijuana simultaneously. The duality of humans blows my mind that we can make something legal and still have people in prison for that thing. Then so when we talk nowadays about like, well, who had it worse later or who gets mistreated, it's like, well, like these people are still currently feeling the repercussions of our history. So until we like address and hold ourselves accountable that we all are collectively like should be held accountable for this and treat those people differently or change the systems that caused it, then we can move forward. But if we get stuck here where we can't even have the conversation or address problems, then we'll be doing this again in 50 years. I don't want to do this with my kids in 50 years. I want to do it. I want to own it and take responsibility as a straight white male in America and understand why we have that perception. Kevin and Jeremy talked about how we've been vilified over this past year. I think it's justifiably so.
All right.
Because like I don't think all these feelings and emotions, or this outrage that happened through George Floyd or this outrage of women is unjustifiable. Like, you know that more women have been killed by their lovers than Americans have died in wars.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
like,
tough. That's tough.
and to like live in like that's reality. That's the reality of a woman. And to like hear that stat as something like that terrifies me. If I were to realize like the person most likely to kill me is my girlfriend, like I would be terrified. Like, are you kidding? Like, dating would be terrifying to me. That's never even thought in my mind that my girlfriend's gonna kill me if like I leave her, or you know, or if I get caught cheating, she's just gonna like take her gun out and like shoot me in the head. Like that's never crossed my mind.
Well, and you just got a girlfriend, so let's not put that thought in her head. So, Rainbow, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, Dallas, you came close to talking about one of my pet issues, which is voter suppression, and the way that that works, and the way that and you talked about 50 years ago, around 50 years ago, 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed. In 2013, that was pretty much dismantled. Okay, so that's one of the big things, is if everybody gets to vote, our society becomes more fair. So there's a really good chance that we can get real voter legislation back into place and you know, I have described myself as a libertarian, and this kind of stuff, it seems like the kind of stuff that a libertarian would be against, and I do understand that. I see that disconnect within how I describe myself and what I see to be an important issue. But if we're going to live within this system, we got to make it work as well as we can for the largest amount of its citizens. And one of the ways you do that is you make sure everybody's vote is heard. So there's definitely 2 bills that are pretty much already written that might be able to go out. And man, if we can re-enfranchise a lot of people, and if we can make it possible for a shitload of people to vote, then that truth that I told of Donald Trump's might come true.
Hey-o. All right, Jeremy or Kevin, take the floor. Jeremy, let's hear from you. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I got a lot of thoughts. Okay, so our country started with certain ideas based on the norms of the times.
Yeah.
So that's our framework. That's where our country came from. Right or wrong for us now, that was the norm of the time. I feel like we cannot keep falling back on what was normal then to fix what is going on now. We started in our current right now view, we started with a broken system. It was racist, it was sexist, it was classist. So how can we expect to use the framework of that system to fix things? We blame government and those in power for getting us into the situations we're in. How can we logically turn around and then rely on government and people in power to get us out of this situation? I've said it before, I think, and I mean, it may be just jumping off into a whole other world of topic, but nationalized federal government cannot fix our country. It can't. There are too many different viewpoints. There are too many different lifestyles and ideas of what pursuit of happiness and life and liberty means. Whoa. We cannot rely on one national voice to tell us what that is and tell us how to do it and force it. Forced equality is not equality.
Come on now.
We need to go to local communities, find communities that agree with what we agree with, and figure out how to govern ourselves on smaller scales and not rely on gigantic groups of career politicians, millionaires sitting in Congress talking about how bad and evil millionaires are. That's not going to fix anything.
Okay. Kevin, what are your thoughts, man? And then we're gonna get into our final thoughts, and then we're gonna close out the show today, guys. What are your final thoughts on this? And then we're gonna get into the closing thoughts. Go ahead.
So we're not on how we're all coming together. We're on that. Can you tell me the proposition again, or the question?
We're basically you know, we're kind of, I think everybody's just kind of like speaking the truth right now. Why don't we do this? And we'll start with you, Kevin. Final thoughts on how we can move together right now. What are you guys' thoughts on? Jeremy, you kind of touched base on it, but take about 60 seconds. And just you know, where do you go from here? What are your thoughts on how do we get to a society that just lives with each other despite what we believe? Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I think that for, whatever I think about the good things or the things I like that came out of the Trump administration, the culture, the society has gotten so out of whack. It's good to have, if he's the cause of that, it's good to have him gone. And we've all got to kind of go back to worrying about how do we improve our own lives and the lives of people around us, and then secondarily, how do we improve the world? It's dangerous, I think, when everybody has an idea about how to go impose new rules on everybody else. But I don't really care if people think I'm bad because I'm a white guy or whatever. I'm going to worry. I got a business to run. I got people to pay. I got plans. I have friendships and relationships I need to nurture and cultivate. And that's really got to be my focus. And I recommend that attitude to everybody. Black, white, green, brown, and everything in between.
Hey, Green Lives Matter, guys. Okay. We're talking about Kermit here. So, all right. Listen, guys, this has been a great dialogue. I think we all kind of touched base on what it is. Everybody's got 60 seconds. Say your piece. Say whatever your final thoughts are. And then Dallas, we're going to start with you. We'll go Dallas, Jeremy, Rainbow, and then Kevin and I will close out the show. When you're done with your 60 seconds, tell people where they can find you, if you care to do that. And then the floor is yours. Dallas, what are your final thoughts? Go ahead.
I'd say we can find some really simple solutions for our national government to face these issues. And it's all based around equal opportunity. As long as we just give everyone equal access to education, electricity, a house, food, and the internet, and make sure they aren't barred, or that their school has one teacher to 32 students, or they have 15-year-old textbooks. And then as long as you give people equal access to all of those resources, then we can move forward past that point. But I think that's just like a really good starting point that we could look at as a country and understand that when you give people enough breathing room, they tend to do the right thing. But when you keep people scared and sick and isolated away from each other, where they don't even meet their neighbors anymore, then that's how we end up where we're at, where we don't even understand that, like, if you were to give the kid food and the education he needed to be able to understand the situation he's in, then he could lift himself out of it. But when we don't even give people the opportunity to those basic, like, pyramids of needs that you have to face, then you sick like we are, where we treat each other differently. And it's because we're scared that we're not going to have enough, or that, like, if I don't eat now, like, I can't share because I got to make sure I have mine, instead of just making sure that, like, I have enough, and then whatever else excess I have, I can then share with those around me, which I think is the whole point of all of this, to life, to the country, to government, to all of us, is just to, like, leave it better than we got it. And if you got more than you need, help out your neighbor, like, give food away, send someone to college, pay off someone's debt because you can.
Man, that's dropping some seeds. Where can they find you at, Dallas?
So you can find me on Facebook with my full title and name, because when I was 15 and I made it, they asked for it, so I gave my full one. Also on Instagram, TikTok as DAJOROBA. It's Dodgerova. It's the first two letters, all four of my name. I kind of like my own name, in case you can't tell.
Dallas, you are a rock star. I love you to death, my friend. Thank you so much. We're going to take you out of stream. All right, Jeremy, the floor is yours, my friend. You got 60 seconds. Tell us, what are your final thoughts on the overall discussion, my friend? Speak your truth.
All right. Well, so much of my life right now and the way I think and live has been influenced by the 12 steps of AA and being in recovery. It's taught me that I need to worry about myself. I need to keep my side of the street clean. I need to worry about what's going on within my own hula hoop, and stop trying to point the finger at other people, blame other people for situations that I am in. Fix what I can fix, and don't worry about the rest. Fix what I can fix. I can only influence my circle. And if I am truly minding to my business and taking care of those in my circle, then and everybody does the same, it's going to be a better place. It's going to be a better country and a better society to live in. Empathy is what we need. You cannot force empathy. You cannot force people to care about other people. When you do that, all you do is increase and build resentments. And resentments never solve anything. They only make problems worse. So as long as we're still addicted and plugged in to looking at and listening to the voiceless and faceless opinions of other people on social media, and not interested in looking at facts and figuring out what can I do, what can I fix, and stop pointing the finger and blaming, there's never going to be any changes. There never will be. We cannot force people to care about other people, and caring about other people is what we need. Situations like we're in right now, all of us talking, nobody getting visibly angry. We're not calling names. We're having a civil discussion. Good is coming from it. I think we're all hearing somebody else's point of view, and it's changing us because we're doing it in a civil manner. If we're standing out in the street, the five of us screaming and yelling at each other, nothing's going to come from that. We have to be able to rationally start to look at problems and fix them, and take the knee-jerk reaction out of things. And yeah, I think that's about all I've got. I don't know. I got tons of opinions.
I love them. Thank you so much, man. You know, we grew up together in Alaska, so went to school. We went to high school together anyway. So I'm really excited to have you be a part of the stream and whatnot. So Jeremy, where can they find you? You're making. Can you want to shout out your business, man? You're doing some cool things, man, with making bowls and stuff.
Yeah. So I got back into a hobby that I've had for a while of doing turning, woodworking with the lathe. I make all sorts of stuff. I make, bowls, pens, I mean, anything that you can imagine turning on a lathe, I do. My business page is Naughty Woods Turn Me On with at the beginning. Other than that, you can find me in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho on the weekends, and downtown Seattle during the week at work. I'm not really, Facebook is kind of the only social media that I'm on. I don't mess with anything else. So.
Well, now you mess with YouTube. Thank you so much, Jeremy. You're
a new experience.
Have a good day. Have a good night, my friend. All right, Rainbow, the floor is yours. You got 60 seconds, my love. Tell us your thoughts.
Well, first off, I want to say how grateful I am for this, because it really was very encouraging to me to hear other points of view and have everybody be such, wonderful conversationalists. I too am an alcoholic in recovery, and I like to live my life by the principles of personal responsibility and taking care of what's in front of me, and also by attraction rather than promotion. So, all we can do is what's in front of us, and that does mean personal connection. That doesn't mean judging people on social media or just blasting stuff out there. It means talking to people, having real conversations. And I think it's so important to do those things. Again, I believe that one thing that we have, that we can take care of in a real effective way, is making sure that everybody's vote is counted. And that is a very important issue to me. So vote. NAACP has a shitload of resources for that kind of stuff. That's a good place to start if you want to look into what you can do as far as voting rights in your particular area.
Whoa, okay. Spoken like a politician, girl. Look like somebody's not a politician, but somebody's changing.
My Twitter's already going to ruin it for me.
Okay, very good. Where can they find your Rainbow? What do they want to know?
You can find me Rainbow Spanagle on Facebook, at RainSpan on various other social media, at Snowflake Meteor if you want to see me get naked. Also at Gentleman Observer on various right-wing platforms.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, Rainbow. We're going to take you out of the stream.
Calvin, they're such a great panel, man. Rainbow, Jeremy, Dallas, great people.
So I want to get what is your key takeaway from today, Kevin? I'll tell you my key takeaway, then I'm gonna give you your 60 seconds, and then I'll take mine, and then we'll end the show, baby.
Well, this is a hell of a lot better than Facebook and Twitter, and maybe from all of this, more people are just going to kind of delete these apps and go back to having discussions with people they actually know or can look at face to face and care about. And that'll probably help improve the situation more than anything. If we just stop the screaming at each other. And the other thing is let's make it taboo to cancel people. There's no reason for that.
don't take my final thoughts now. Don't take my final thoughts. All right, you got 60 seconds, my friend. Final thoughts, unless that was it. But final thoughts. What are your thoughts on everything, man?
Well, ask me a question. I don't know my thoughts on everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
thoughts on everything, baby. If you want to, you summed it up pretty well there. So,
yeah, we got to be more civil. I think we all ought to just calm down, focus on relationships. And again, focus on how we can be better people, better for ourselves, better for our immediate relationships, friends, family, without hurting anybody. And you know what? The more we do that, the better I think we are for society as a whole. And also, let's stop. I mean, I know not everyone agrees with me, but let's just stop the race stuff. It's just, let's move on. I really do think that that's important.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kevin, so much, my friend. My key takeaway from today, and I'll say this with you, is that, and this is what's going to lead me into my final thoughts, is that everyone has their own perspective of what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
That's my key takeaway. Kevin, I'm going to take you out. Thank you so much. All right, guys. So it has been a wonderful show. Here are my final thoughts on today's show. Make America Great Again. Here's the reality, my friends, is that America is a very interesting country, and we have a lot that we can and should be grateful for. We have a lot that we need to recognize and to address, right? And that starts with self. The three biggest things I want to say is, first and foremost, Kevin kind of took it from me. We need to cancel the culture that cancels culture. And listen to what I just said. Cancel the culture that cancels culture, right? If you don't like me, or if you disagree with me, or if you have a different perspective because of who you are, where you're from, that's your culture. That's your culture. And if I cancel you because your culture does not agree with mine, I'm essentially canceling culture. May take some time to wrap your head around that, but really, really think about that. Cancel the culture that cancels culture. If you are on Facebook and you're a Facebook warrior, listen, it's a like wasteland, guys. I think that social media, Kevin spoke to this, social media, these apps, what we do is that we get so lost in this immediate, what's it called? Immediate self, when you get the immediate result, right? You get that like, it's immediate satisfaction, right? So I'm immediately satisfied because my point was out there, and now I'm good, right? The reality is that's all fake. It's all fake. None of that stuff is real. And so the less time you're on Facebook, and the more time that you are actually having discussions, the better it is going to be for everybody. And my final thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, is that we got to meet people where they're at. Bottom line, that's what's going to make us great. Meet people where they're at, and that goes for all sides. My name is Kelvin West. Thank you so much for tuning in to Call in America. Subscribe, guys. Subscribe to the show. We're on YouTube, Twitch, and we're on Facebook. But we've got some great shows coming up. Our next show is going to be called Transphobia. It's going to be all about the trans conversation, and we're going to get into it. We're going to talk all about trans lives and what that's about, and we're going to hear from all different sides. Once again, I'm Kelvin West. And ladies and gentlemen, that is our show.